Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Today we have a Penn Peerless number 9 that we're going to break down and show you how to put back together again. Alright, let's start with the handle. Remove the set screw. Excuse me, that just pops right up. Nothing underneath it. Remove the star drag. Pull out this sleeve. And let's remove the side plates. Start with the left side plate. You notice the screws for the stand are smaller or shorter than the screws for the post, but they're both the same on each side. Get off this beauty ring. Now we can remove the click portion of the clicker. And let's pop that up. The dog doesn't come out, it simply stays in there. Now we can unscrew this. That's part of the gear for the worm, the transfer gear. This is the other part of it. And let's go ahead and remove the bearing. There's a spring in here. You have to be careful for. And right here sits the spare pall. I'm going to remove that because we're going to clean the reel afterwards. And that's it for the left side plate. We'll pull the spool out. And on the spool there's a retaining ring here for these gears. You simply pop it up. To get it off. Like so. And off comes the gear. Everything else stays on the spool. Now we can pull this portion out for the worm gear, the shield. Pull out the worm gear itself. And now we'll pull out the pall by unscrewing this. It's a slight bend in here. Nothing major, should be fine. And I'm just checking the teeth. Looks good. Okay, so let's break down the right side. And we can loosen these screws now to remove the bridge. While we're here, we'll remove this screw. This is for the other side of the level 1 assembly. Out with the screws. Simply push down and roll the bridge out. Here's the dog with the excuse me, with the leaf spring. And on the bridge, excuse me, on the sleeve, there's a spacing washer that goes under the main gear. Get the dog out, excuse me, the drag out. It sits like this. Let's go ahead and remove the eccentric by unscrewing this. Popping that off. And now we can pull out the jack, as well as the yoke and springs. Now we can push this eccentric up and get that out of there. There's a bearing here that we're going to unscrew. And that's it for the excuse me, for the right side. So I'll go ahead and get this all cleaned up and then come back to you and show you how to put it all together. One thing I forgot to show you is how to remove the sleeve off this bridge. So let's do that before we start cleaning the reel up. There's a little, let me use this instead. There's a little pin inside there that we have to push out through the other side. Sometimes you can just push it with your hand, and this one seems to be the case, which is good. So out it comes, and this comes right off, like so. Okay, we'll get this cleaned up and then I will get back to you and show you how to put it together. Okay, and we're back. The first thing I'm going to do is show you a little trick on how to refurbish these Bakelite plates. And I'll show you with this one first. Just take a little bit of oil, or grease, excuse me. Wipe it around. You don't need a whole bunch. Grab a paper towel. And just wipe it in. A nice, quick, simple, easy way of improving the look. Notice the difference? Let me finish this one up. All right, so next thing, Okay, so the next thing I'll do is get this pall, the spare pall, just put back in. Don't need it lying around. And I'm going to put on, I'm going to be jumping around a little bit on this one. I'm just trying to get the easy things out of the way so we don't lose any pieces or have trouble finding them later on. I'm going to put this piece on to the gear here. Then I'll add grease, grease to it afterwards. So just this gear itself is keyed, so you have to get it over the excuse me, over the slot. Take the metal ring, push it down, and then you're gonna pop it over. I'll use a screwdriver for this. Pop it over the little bridge there, and it's set in place. So it's not going anywhere. Excuse me. So let's go ahead and get the clicker assembled. I'll grease this up. Now to get this set in place, we're simply going to pop it over the two prongs there, position this, and just open it up like that. Then we can get that screwed in. Oh, excuse me. Let's back that up so we can get our gear in first. Let's get our transfer gear in there. I'm gonna add some grease to it right now, since it's easy to get to like this. And let's do that again. Okay. Now we could stick this gear in there now, but it'll just keep falling out. So we'll wait till the end. But I will. Let me stick it in there actually, and then I'll put the beauty ring over it so it keeps it in place. And let's go ahead and get this greased. Drop that in place. And let's get our beauty ring on. Now we can stick our bearing in there, which is the larger of the two bearings. So I'm gonna oil these, and I'm gonna do all the bearings right now. Then we just screw it in place. Don't screw it all the way in, because obviously the spool will be going inside there. Let's get the other bearings and our so-called bearings. Get some on them right now so they can kind of just sit there. So next, let's go ahead and get the bridge and the post put together. I'll grease this up. Set it on like so. And we can get our pin in. Pin just goes through the hole and slips through the slot. I can actually push this one in, I think. Yeah. And I'm going to use my screwdriver to get it all the way in there. Sometimes you have to bang these in with a hammer, but the key is to just make sure it's recessed just enough so this surface stays or remains smooth so you can get the main gear over it. Okay. Now we'll get our main gear put on there. So on with this first hard washer. On with the main gear. And we're going to add some drag grease to these drags just to help them last longer. Don't put a lot, just light coat. So fiber drag washer first. A metal keyed washer is next. Fiber drag washer. Now we have the metal eared washer. And the trick with these reels is that you have to make sure this, when you put this back together, that this eared washer stays inside that groove right there. Sometimes what will happen if you put it together, that eared washer will fall out or slip up, and you effectively have no drag and you think something's wrong with the reel. So we'll try to ensure that we get that staying in place when we get the main gear put back into the right side plate. Now with the final keyed washer and the tension spring above. Now we can set that to the side and work on the rest of the reel. We're going to get this right side plate put together. What I'm going to do here is just hand thread this bearing piece in, so not fully tight. And thinking of that, I think I missed the spring I did for the left side bearing. So let me do that so you guys are seeing the proper technique. So I insert the spring into the left side bearing and then screw it in place. This simply acts as essentially the tension knob on this. Sorry about that. Okay. So I'll get my spring set in here, like so. Then I'll get my pinion and my yoke. If I can pick this up. go ahead and get this greased up. Grease the pinion. Just a light coat of grease on these things. You can stick that on there like that through the groove. Now we can rest this on the springs, and it's going to sit like this with the curved portion sitting away from the main gear. Let me get the eccentric put in before I even get any further with this. So the eccentric's going to sit, just adding a dab of grease to the tip. Let me show you that so you can see it. Using the hooked end, I'm adding a dab of grease to the tip, and I'm going to stick it through the hole on this right here. I'm going to pop these springs out because it might be a little simpler. And that's going to sit in that groove right there in the corner, like so. The way I get this on is I take the eccentric. Yeah, this won't just be the same thing. Get the eccentric, find the groove for it. Need to get that down a little more. Find the groove for it using the eccentric in the incorrect position. Screw it in place so I can then balance the lever and reverse it. Now I'll find the balance position here. I'm going to hold on to this while I unscrew. I'll unscrew this slightly so you can kind of see it. Hold on to that. Pop it out of there. I'm trying to hold on to the back of the eccentric so it doesn't go shooting anywhere. Come on. And then just turn it around. Put it on there like that. I know I'm out of focus or out of the camera's view. Sorry. Screw it in. Yeah, we're good. Get it balanced back. And now we're set in place. Sometimes they're a little trickier than others. All right, back into the springs. Let's get the eccentric spring greased. We'll re-add some more here. Again, this is going to sit away from the main gear, the curved part. And now we're going to get our yoke and get that greased up and then put on. So the yoke will sit like, let me see. The yoke will sit like this. And the way I like to do it is, I like to get the fat part on and then slide it over. Like that. And then I will put this in free spool just to keep it set in place so it doesn't slip out on me. But when I go to put the main gear in, I'm going to have to put it back in gear to get everything set inside there. Okay, so now I can get my main gear. I'm gonna get this rolled over after I put the dog in. And this dog is a leaf spring. And I won't be able to show you on camera how to get it set in there. So I'm gonna show you where it sits. Then this way, you can know how to work it in there. This leaf spring will sit exactly like that. Hope you can see that. The short end is going to curve around this post right here. The long end will sit on top of the dog. So I'll get my fully threaded screw, which is this one. Stick that through here. Stick the post, the dog on, excuse me. It'll sit just like that. And then I'm gonna put the main gear in, and then put the spring in around this. Or we'll get that. So first I'll set. The reason you can't see this one too well is because I want to ensure that the aired washer doesn't come out of place. So I apologize in advance for you not seeing this one as best as I'd like you to see it. Put that back in gear so I can roll this over partially. And from this step, I'm going to take the dog and stick it in there. Now I'm gonna have to go off camera because I need to get a little closer to my body. I was trying to do it on camera. It's just the angles I have to use to get this in is tough. That's all. And it does take a few tries sometimes. So it'll sit just like that. Okay, let's close this up. Get this screw just in slightly so it can keep this secure. And now we'll get the rest of the screws in. We have the fully threaded versus the partially threaded screws. And I'm looking for my other screw. We'll get it in a sec. The partially threaded screws go through the spring portion of this. And the fully threaded goes through the bottom side. Now we'll just get our final screw and get this locked down. That's going through the spring, so it is not fully threaded. And now we can make sure our dog works. Let's get this beater ring put on so we have that set. I'm just lining up these holes. Okay, so I'm gonna get these screws just get set in there so we can get them out of the way. I'm gonna put them on both sides. Then we're going to attach our posts. Okay, so let's do the left side first. We'll use our 2 short screws, and the stand should be right about there. Let's make sure. 1, 2, stand, stand. Stand should be right about there. Okay, and this will go up here, and we'll play with this at the end so we can get it set properly so that the line guide can fit properly inside here. And I'm going to brush this out a little bit because there's some contaminants in there. So let's get this screwed in place. Just stick our screw through. Again, this doesn't have to be locked down yet. We're going to make sure it's set properly afterwards. Get our posts in. Where's my other screw? Get this post in. And that looks about right. Okay. So now we can get our shield, or like so. Get our worm gear, and we can stick it inside there. If you'll notice, there's a slotted end on here. Let's see if I can show you this part. Do you see that slotted end right there? Just get it flat. It's kind of a indentation there. That'll go on the left side because it has to go through this post right here into that gear, and that's what it's locking into. So I can turn it like that. Get our shield on, and this will be a lot of juggling, so and we're just trying to get these things kind of just set in place, and then we'll make the adjustments after we get the right side on. Get our line guide. And I'm going to add just a little bit of oil in here. Get that stuck over here like so. Put the shield back on. This one's a little crazy because you do have to do a lot of balancing on this one. Like that. Then we'll get our right side plate put on. All right, so at this point I'm going to add a screw onto one of these posts, and it'll be the top post here, and one onto the reel stand. Not all the way in. And we'll be playing with this back and forth to just make sure we get everything set in place. So now I'm going to get this turned so that the groove rests on top of the top of this. that. What I want to do with it on. Get the top in the groove, rotate it over so it locks it in there. And that should be pretty good. We want to make sure it's at an angle where this flows freely. That's all I was looking for. If you put it too far down, it'll just lock it and it won't go anywhere. So it has to be at a very good angle where it can slide back and forth. Now we can certainly lock this in place. And for the pawls, I actually like to use just like a dab of grease on top. A lot of people like using oil. It's a really light amount of grease on this. Not a whole lot. And then I will oil the worm. Drop the pawl in place. It needs to ride along the up and down. It needs to be perpendicular, or sorry, in line with the worm. I think we just found it. Add some oil, very light, very, very light. I'm gonna work that through. Okay, and let's get this post back in place. Okay, good. So now what's left is simply the handle, and we'll be done with this reel. So on with the sleeve, on with the drag knob. I'm gonna put this gear, reel in gear so I can hold it, so I can spin the drag knob on. Make sure it's level. If you mess up the threads on this, you need a whole new sleeve on there. On with this, screw it in place. Let me go ahead and tighten this up before I get But these Bakelite handles are Bakelite sides. You don't want to tighten anything on too extreme because it can crack them. Find the groove. In with the set screw. Last thing to do is grease this handle up a little bit with some oil. Just a knob. Work that in there. Good. There's a free spool. Open the tension knob up a little bit so you can get more free spool. Engaged. We have drag, which is good. Oh, we have a lot of nice drag on this. And that's how you put together a Penn Peerless 9. It's pretty similar to a 209, any kind of level 1 reel, the older ones from Penn. All basically the same way. So thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate always you going through this with me. I know sometimes the process is a bit tedious, but I don't want to miss any steps. Even though you may know some of these things, you can kind of skip ahead, jump back, go forward. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you do, please go ahead and subscribe. I'll be posting videos at least once every week or two. Typically a lot more than that. But thanks again for watching. I'll see you next time.